Now in this video, we want to actually continue on with our grid application, checking out the business intelligence features and capabilities that are available within the latest version of Scriptcase. So, grid application. So for our grid, let me minimize that for a moment and we can come here to our group by information. And if I click on that to open it, it will expand and display the options, just to get rid of all of these so we don't get too confused with the few options that are available for the grouping of your data or summarizing your data, because summary and grouping, they are both related, as well as charting within the grid application. To use the chart or the summary modules that you have available here on the first page of the grid application, you do need to enable or add groups of data. Now the first option we have here is the dynamic group by. And typically you have your grid application like we have here. There is no group by button or option here, and that will then be added with the group by functionality. And once that has been added, we will then have a summary of our data available, grouped of course, via our own selected data points that we have chosen. So we have here the group by, and I choose here the select fields option. I can start to drag and drop the fields that I want to have available for the dynamic group by. And here I will choose the country, continent, type client also, and then we can also go with order date. And when we add a date field, we have all sorts of options here for the period. So we can choose year, year and semester, year and 4 month, quarter, 2 months, month, week, day even, and display the data as we need it. So in this case, I will choose year and month. And then for our grid totals, let me add in here the quantity, price unit, total price, and then, well, let's leave out the record count, but we will add those same fields over here into the summary totals also. And again, when we drag our options into the totals or the summary totals, we again have options available for the integer fields or date fields that we drag and drop in there. And in this case, for these integer fields, we can sum it, we can get an average, we can get a count, even weighted and a distinct. So do be sure to check out those options that you have available and of course apply it as you need it. So the quantity, I will choose count here, price unit sum, total sum, and quantity count over here as well. So there I will go save. And if I go ahead and run the grid application, you'll see there is no change other than the addition now of the group by button. And I can click that group by button and it will allow me to adjust my content according to my selected groups. And just like that, I have then the continent grouped via Africa, and of course I can scroll through and find any other countries there, South America and so forth. But of course we have a lot of entries in here, so we may want to make some adjustments to this. Now when it comes to the fields within the group by, and we have added those there now, and they are then available here within the fields option, and here I can then further customize these options. For instance here, the type client, that may be a lookup for the database, and then I can choose here the clients or client types or whatever else I have associated to that in here, and then of course I can link this then to that data and display the correct data relevant to what I am displaying. So for instance here for the order date, we can adjust here the display of the date, whether it is day, month, year, day and month, year, month and day, as well as a detail mask here that we can apply and regional settings. Now each of these can be added and or of course adjusted. Below that you do have further group by settings, so you can adjust the display of the group by as well as positioning, the PDF layout for export, and so much more. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this again, and we have then our default grid with then now a dynamic group by on the button. Now what we want to do is actually add some static group bys in here. So I'm going to come here to the static group by and come here to settings, and there right now we have nothing. So once I have added my group bys in here, I can adjust the rules in here. Okay, so maybe later on we will want that. For now we want to add some new group bys. Now I can add any name in here, and I'll just call it my groups, and maybe my group 1. And what I'll do is I'll copy that ready for in a moment so we can have multiple groups. And then I'll call this the type client group. And here maybe I just want to have a quantity, and I will save that. Okay, now if I want to, I can come back into this and make adjustments for the field and so forth, just like we had done within the dynamic group by. We also have separate settings in here as well, and of course I can delete it anytime I want to. Now there is a difference between the dynamic and the static group by, is that right now we have only the dynamic group by enabled here. So if I refresh this, it will refresh on the continent. If I come back to group by, remove the group by, and okay that, we have our default grid application. Now with the static group by, it will add a static group by. So the group will be permanent. So instead of calling this my group, I will call this in fact my type client. So I can identify it a little bit later, otherwise we will not know exactly what it is. It would just be my group, my group, my group, and that doesn't help. And in here, I can type in any title or label that I want, which can also be adjusted later. The name, as you just saw a few moments ago, we cannot change that. Once you've added it, that's it. It has been defined. You can, however, go and delete it and recreate it at any point. So here in this type client, again, I'll add quantity and quantity for the grid totals and summary totals. And if I go ahead now and run the grid application, we will now have a static. And if I go ahead now and check out here the fields, we have then the field here available. We can adjust the field just like we can within the dynamic group by. We also have then here the type settings, which takes us back to the group configuration, where we can again drag and drop new groups in here if we wanted to and save them. Within the static group by settings, we have here the alignment, so the sorting of, and again once we have more groups in there, we can add those. Now if I go ahead and run the grid application now, you'll see that the static group has not been applied yet, and that is because we have a dynamic group by as well. And in that case, we need to come here to the settings, and with the initial group by here right now is the dynamic group by, and then maybe we want to change that to the type client, which is then the static group by. Now if I go ahead and run that now, we have the grid now running with the static group by. I can come here to the group by itself, and here I have then the static group bys which have been configured, as well as then the dynamic allowing me to create my own group by. Now the organization of your data is very important, as well as the visualization of content and so forth. Now, one of the business intelligence features of the grid application is not only the grouping, but then of course here the summary. Now the data has been grouped, the summary now becomes available, and with that we can then view the grouped data all together. So here I have the quantity of legal entity, how many natural persons there are, public companies. It's just doing an account, and from here I have also all the export features, just like the grid application. I can email all of those options as well. I have many chart options here. We don't see the chart yet, but if I click here on the chart icon, it will in fact display us a chart. Now we can integrate the chart with the summary, as well as the summary with the grid and so forth, or the chart with the grid and other options. All of that is configurable just with a few clicks within the grid application. Now coming here to settings, we can make further adjustments or allow the end user to make further adjustments to the view. We have here the group by again available for us, as well as then the detail view. Now, clicking back on the summary, we can always drill down on the data that we have available here. So I can always choose then the types that are available and drill down within that data and look at it some more. Of course, that is just really the start of it. Now, I should note that here on our grid application, when we do group our data, we do have then the accounts displayed, and right now they're not displayed on every page, they're actually displayed then at the end of the group. So we may want to in fact make some further adjustments to that within the settings, but of course we can do that all from here within the grid application. Now, it is, of course, important to highlight the fact that once we have our summary available here, as well as our chart application, because, of course, we have many chart options available within Scriptcase, and choosing then the chart options button up in the top there, we can change from a bar chart to a pie chart. We can adjust the data from synthetic to analytical, and it will then display that content for us. We can change the width, the height, as well as then the value sorting of our data. And of course, further options are also available and configurable all within the grid application, allowing you to customize the features available to your end users. Now, within then the grid application, we can go ahead and come back here and let's create actually a few more groups. So we have here right now one group, and we want to add maybe another group in here. So I'm going to add the continent, and let's call it continent. Now, I don't actually have to give any name there. I could just leave that, and I'm going to go country and then order date and then product here also. Now, the order date, we're going to set that to year and quarter. The quantity, price per unit, and total price, I will place these into our grid totals and summaries again. And now if I go ahead and save that, our new group will be created, and of course I can go ahead and run the grid application now. And now if I come here back to the group by, we have then here our static group bys, and again I can just make a quick adjustment, and there we go. Then we have our group differently organized, right? So we have now continent, country, and then via the quarter with then the product also. And of course we can make any other adjustments here as well. So if I create one more group, and will not name it this time or add a label, I will wait for that, and you'll see then also what happens. So if I add then this time country and product, and then we're going to go with quantity, price, unit, total price again. So we have these four values here. And just like that, just drag and drop them. And again, we can make adjustments here to our data as we need to. We can then go ahead and save that. See, then the name of the group is then created. The label not. So in this case, I will add then the label for this. Save that again and go ahead and run the grid application. And just like that, then we have our new group by added in here for the country and then the product. Okay, so back within our grid application in here, let's add then here the order date, and let's go order date year, and we can then change that to year and semester maybe, so that we have some different views entirely. So we have our continent options here, continent, country, order date. We have our type client. There's no order date here, just the type client, the quantity available, and that's it. That's what we've set. And then we come back here to settings, and now because we have multiple groups, we can actually move them around here within the sorting. So there, if I place the continent at top and run the grid again, now within my group by, the continent is displayed at the top. Of course, to change the default group by, we need to come back here to settings and change the initial group by to maybe the one that we want to have displayed. We can just go ahead and run that, and there we then have the default group by displayed at all times as we need it. Okay, so we do have the sums available in here, and you're seeing that's not being displayed correctly here because there's probably no data, and that is typically the only reason why something will not be displayed is because there is no data associated to it. So we have here our type client, our continent, product, and then here our country, order date, country, product. We don't really need a total price there. So I'll just adjust that to quantity, total, and quantity and total price like so, and run it again. And then we then have our data again. And of course, we need to add also into here the fields that are going to be calculated. Do pay attention here that we have no calculating fields within this grid. So to make quick adjustments to the fields, we can come here to edit fields, and we can drag and drop those fields either into the grid application, or we can also come here to the field positioning and adjust them in here. Now if I go ahead and save that and run then the grid application, now we can see here that we have now the quantity as well as the price unit and total prices displayed here as we require for our data. And if I come here now to the summary, we can see that we have here a nice summary displayed via country, quarter of the year, the product information, and of course a nice indication of all of our data. And there are charts all over the place here now, so I can click on any of these chart icons and a chart will be opened. I can also drill down within the grid application and view related data. And there we have our chart, for instance. So we can see here Asia, Europe, North America. We can see then the total sales or products, whatever we've actually calculated there. And that is then displayed beautifully within the chart application. And just as previous, we can go ahead and make adjustments here to the chart display as we need to dynamically within the grid application. Now it is also important to highlight some of the extra features we have here, because we have a detail page for the summary also, and that then opens up of course the detail of that. And if I click on summary, we have the refresh button here as well. We can group by from within the summary as well, and also adjust the settings and export and email features and functionality, all in the name of course in business intelligence. So do check it out, and of course group your own data within the grid application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more group by here. I think let's go add one more group by, and this one we're going to actually organize this one via the order date, and here we will say year and month, and that will then be a category as well as a product. Here we can have the quantity as grid totals, the price unit and total price for summary. And again, if I go ahead and save that, I need to add then also a label, and this would then be order of products maybe by month. Okay, and I can go ahead and save that. And if I want to have this again as the first initial group, I need to define that here within the group by settings again. I can go ahead and run that, and then just like that we have a new group by with the month, year, category, products, as well as then the totals and everything available within our grid. And of course there are more options to check here as well as change within the group settings. For instance, we have here the enable of tree view, and if I disable that, then the tree view here will be disabled and we can no longer click on these. The groups are then static, and again it gives a completely different view. We have also the group by header, the group by line, so it's before the records or after the records. We can display titles as well as change the title of the record count, and of course even here our separator if we wanted to change that to something else, say a star or just equals an arrow, whatever that may be. And there we then have the star display just as I have indicated in here. We can add separates into the group by by defining here a height in pixels, and that will separate the group by a little, as well as using an empty group by to start our grid application. So if I start with an empty group by, go run, and then we will have the default grid with no summary, with no grouping, and of course then you as a user would essentially have to use here the group by options available within the grid application. Alternatively, of course, we can set that not to use an empty group by and use the group by that we want to use. Okay, so with those, we also have here the dynamic totalization of our summaries. That is handy, and you can disable that if you want to, as well as start with aggregated open. And I will disable both of those. We can go ahead and run the grid application again, and you'll see, it's just made minor adjustments to the view of our data within the grid application. So changing the way the data is presented within your application will of course make a big difference to how you are going to work. And of course, using the summary application will be a great help, providing you that visual view that you are wanting of your data within the applications. So do be sure to check that out, and of course group your data, add summaries, and customize the charts that are available to you. So I hope this helps with your visual analysis of your data, how to create maybe different views within the grid application to help you with visually analyzing your data, as well as understanding how to apply this easy enough within Scriptcase. Now, once you have your views all laid out, your summary and your data all grouped up and prepared with your charts, with however you are wanting to have your data visually displayed to you so that you are able to analyze your business or whatever it is that you are doing, it is maybe important to add another important feature to this grid application. Now, one thing to do, I am going to adjust here the grid so that it actually starts on the summary, and to do that I need to come here to the grid modules, initial module, and then here I will choose the summary application. Now the summary display here is on another page. We can adjust that. For now, let's just go ahead and look at it as the initial module. And as you see, as the initial module, it will start as the summary and display all of that relevant data that you are actually wanting to see straight away without having to go and group your data and then view the summary. So you can configure these super powerful grids within Scriptcase in so many different ways. And one of those is adding here the option to save your grid, because saving your data is of course very important. And being able to do that within your grid application can save you a great deal of time. So what I'll do is come here and click the public checkbox here, and also click here the save in session option. And what I'll do is, first of all, the public checkbox here will create a profile level, as it says here, set to public for saved profiles. Now, you are able to save specific profiles to a user using the user variable, as it's kind of indicated here. But otherwise, you may want to actually have just an open option for people to save their searches and their summary, group by selections, and so forth, because everything you do within the grid application, you can basically save it. So if you remove some columns or remove some data or group it in a certain way, or maybe change something here, the chart option, so it's the chart you want to see all the time, that is then presented, then you will want to come into the grid application and enable the save option. And here, by enabling the save in session, we enable the saving of a state of the grid. So the grid state is basically saved within your browser. And I can have the manual save mode or the automatic save mode. So I will leave that as manual. And if I go ahead and run then the grid application, we now have here a save button as well as a persistent state drop down button. So if I click that, it will set a persistent state. And if I come here and click on the save button, it will then open a save box for me, and I can actually save this current view so that I can return back to it. Now I have here the level as public, and then I can add a name in here. So I will call this my view. Now I'll save that, and now here I have the views available as a state, and I can just apply it. I can delete it as and when I want to. For now, if I go ahead and exit, and if I change here maybe the group by, in fact let's refresh first of all. And then adjusting here maybe the group by to country, the data will then of course change within the grid application. Now this is my browser. That seems to be a bit slow today, so I hope that is a little forgiven, but it's not Scriptcase. Okay, so that is entirely my browser. Okay, so I've changed now the group by, and what I want to do is maybe save this as another state, and I could then add this as a new save. And then for this one, I'll place in here semester, because that's what I have here, semester. I'll save that one. I'll exit for now, and then maybe I will want to make some further adjustments here to some of the other options. And at any time now, I can revert back to one of my previous saves. So I'll just click on the save button, and of course the window will open again. And I can then just go ahead and apply maybe one of my previously saved sessions and customizations within the grid application. And with that, then I have then a customizable view for as and when I need it. So clicking on save, I can then just apply here my view, for instance, and that is then ready. I'll just click that, and the grid will then go ahead and apply the previous view that I just had. And then with the previously stored view that I have that then applied within a few moments, and I can then go ahead and continue on with my data analysis. And just like that, we can have some awesome views and some great functionality helping us to save a great deal of time, analyze our data in much better ways, and for sure being more effective. Now, when we add our save button into our grid application, we also have some further options here, because we have the option to use rules, meaning we can apply rules to our save. So if I come here and go new rule, I can then say my rule, for instance. I'll call it whatever I want. I will give it a label as user, and then in here, for instance, I could then add the user login, and that will then apply that rule to my application. So here I will add that. I will click on finish, and now if I go ahead and run, the rules will then also be applied. So now it's looking for my username. I would say login, whatever it is. And now whenever I save, I will have then everything stored within my rule. of course I can come here and add a new rule. I have then the level being public or user, and if I set that then to user, it will then add then my user login to the storage here, my store, save that, and then we have that then available here, my view semester, and of course that is then only available within that user. And right now I'm not really logged in, so of course it's not really going to work as it should. Now if I click on save again, I can of course then check and view that again once more. So then with our grid rules applied, we can add new rules, extend them if we want to, remove them as and when we want to, and even adjust here the layout, because we have an extended option here for that, as well as a simplified layout version, and both of those are available here. Now, clicking then on the save, we have then the alternative view as we just had. Now there is a simplified as well as an extended layout view option for the save grids. Now personally I'm not seeing much of a difference there right now, but that is there. And of course you have the save session which we had enabled, and that should then save the session for us. So when we click this button, it should actually give us a drop menu and allow us to change the state of the application. Right now it doesn't seem to be working because it's on the manual. If I go then to automatic and run it, it should then automatically save the state all the time, and I can clear the state. So now if I go ahead and change the settings within this grid application and then later come back to this grid, it should retain the same settings from my previous view. And clicking the settings here, I can maybe change the sorting of what I want and make little adjustments there. And then that state will then be saved for the next time I come and view this data. So business intelligence in Scriptcase is overflowing. It is phenomenal. There is so much business intelligence, as you may like to say, available within Scriptcase. And we're only looking at the grid application. It is chock-a-block with features available for you to gather and select that data that you need for your business. Now we've just had a look at how we can use the Save Grid feature within the grid application. And with that we have our summary displayed, and well, we may not want to have that. Of course we can come back to grid modules at any time and change that back to the grid, and we have our grid application displayed within the default method. Now of course we still have our data grouped here, and there is still so much to show you, because within the summary which we've just added, there are still a ton of features, and we have our save functionality added there. We have the summary functionality also added, and we can also start the application in any shape or form that we want. So now with the summary, there are still a load of features here that we are able to adjust. So before I continue on with the scheduled video, I want to actually go through the summary here a little bit and check out the settings, because here in the settings we can change the summary so it displays the content as we need it to. We can add a title in here, we can change the labels, change how the total is displayed on every page or just on the last page. We change the horizontal and vertical total positioning, as well as the position of the horizontal totals, which we can place at the bottom or the top if we wanted to, and that is also a nice new feature there. And below that we have many other features available here. Now we have here below that the capability to change the layout of our content. So if I run the summary here again, or our grid, and then check out here the summary with the currently defined group by. We need to remember that the group by is what defines then the summary. So if I change here the group by, say to type client and go OK, and then come here to the summary, then that will be assigned as so, just as I have it then specified within the group by. And of course we can change that also within the summary application when it is running, and of course change then the data that is then available to us. Now within Scriptcase we can enhance that application further by changing here maybe the display of our content. For instance, here we have the X and Y axis, and maybe we want here the order date on the X axis here, and if we come up here, maybe the type client on the X axis, or here the order date. So we may want to change that. So it's up to you. You would of course adjust the content as you would need, and I will change all of those there to the X axis. And if I run the summary application again, that will of course then change the layout of our content. So when I come then here to the summary, we now have the dates at the top here, and of course that gives us a completely different aspect and view of our data, which is of course very important. And that is just very easy to apply just by clicking it simply, and that will change from the X and Y axis. You can also change here the sorting values, whether you want to have that sorted by the displayed value or the database value. You can change the alignment as well as then the labels, and link that also to the grid application. Because when we are viewing this information, and if I check here the product and I click on that product, it is going to present me that information. So I'm able to drill down within my summary report and view the relevant or specific data that I am actually wanting to see, which is pretty damn powerful, right? Okay, so we have all of those features and functionalities built in there, and of course with a quick change there, we've made a very important adjustment to the way our data is presented. Now within the summary here, we can also adjust the toolbar just like we can within all of the other applications, and adjust here the sorting of each of these. We can change how that data is sorted, if it's sortable at all. We also have limits that we can apply, and of course filter according to those limits and change that to maybe the summarization to sum or count or variance, depending on, even average, depending on what we are wanting to actually have displayed, and depending on the data, of course, that we are reading in the first place. Now, we can also adjust the chart information here for the summary, which is quite nice. And with that, you can also display the chart above the summary, for instance. So if I check that box and go ahead and run that grid application again, and then if I check now the summary application, we'll see now that we have the chart displayed above the summary, which is very nice, right? And of course that will again change the view of our data, and in which becoming much more powerful for our analysis. Okay, so with that, we can also adjust the fields here separately from the grid data itself. So we can actually change here the limits for the number of items that are displayed within the chart. We have then also the metric values that we can then adjust. Here we can change the font values, the text and so forth, as well as the regional settings. And of course, the very nice feature here is the display percentage, because by clicking that single box there, we can then display the percentage of this value. So if I check that box then on each of our metric values that we have available here, and the display percentage down or right, so I'll leave that as right. And if I go ahead and run, of course we can move that to down or right. And if I come into the summary application again, we'll see then that we now have not only the grid on top there, but we will also have percentage values on, of course, our indicators here. Now we do need to change here the group by. Change it to type client, and here we have no percentages yet. And continent, let's try continent, and there you can see now that for the continent, for the sum and price unit, as well as then our final value over here, we have then the total sum, and they also then display percentages according to our data. So that is business intelligence right there, available for you just with a click within the Scriptcase applications. Okay, so that's then the metrics, and of course I can adjust that for each of our other options here for all the other metric fields, display the percentage there also. So I will go ahead and enable that on all of those, and with that then that will then display the percentage on each of our group buys. Now we do have a few more here, so let's go ahead and add it to these also. Very quickly, total unit, and then we have our final one here, the order date. I will add it here also. And again, of course, we can enable or disable this wherever we want to and for whenever we pretty much want to within the application. It's just a case then of making that adjustment. So now in the summary, we can see now that this chart also has, or this summary has the chart displayed as well as then the percentages here also, which is of course pretty powerful when it comes to usability within our applications. Okay, so back in Scriptcase, we can of course adjust the layout and search values here. So I will dive here into the chart section again and just remove the chart from the summary, because really what we want to do there now is something completely very different. So now that we have all of those values within the summary application, we can go ahead and of course check out the advanced search. And the advanced search provides us many features, because we have that again as a completely separate module within the basic settings of our grid application. So here we have the search module, and with that we enable the advanced search features. And the advanced search is available here within the search, and if I minimize here the grid also, we can see that a little better. Now we have within the search options here advanced search, dynamic search and quick search. Now the quick search is enabled by default on all applications, and removing the search module here will still display the quick search. See, the quick search is still here, but you may notice the search button is no longer there. So we can still use this quick search, of course, also remove it if we wanted to, and have that available within the application without the advanced search module. So enabling that again will enable that, and of course if I run the grid application again, we will then have the search button available here, providing us with then the advanced search. So checking out the advanced search features, we have quite a few options here. So the default settings for search overall, we have the search criteria, which we can change to and or, as well as we have the option to display the condition and to use autocomplete in the fields, which is actually a nice option, but it will really depend on the field. You have then also here the search criteria. So once you have added your fields, then you will have them available for you here, just as we have now the sec, type client, continent and country. These are currently within the advanced search form. So if I come here to search, we can see that here, country, sec, type client and continent. And here we have then the comparison operators here, and we can change that here whether we want to have country say it contains the value that we enter, it is equal to, it's empty, or none of them, or all of them, or whatever you like. And at the same time, per criteria or per value, we can enable here the show condition. So if I say no here and go ahead and run that form again, or the search should I say, and come here to search, we'll see now that a value has been removed, and it will be set then on the value that has been defined here. So right now it would use none of the criterias, which would not really be very good. So maybe you would want to go contains or equals to. So we can then go ahead and save that, and then with the country, for instance, the only value there will be equal to, and it needs to then be then the same. And if a continent, we can say contains, for instance, or again equal to. For type of client, let's go contains, and sec, let's also go contains. And we can say show the condition no on each of these, and that way the condition that we have defined there would then be the condition that we have set for the form overall. Of course, we can come back into Scriptcase and adjust that and have those conditions displayed, and of course enable all of these that we want to have. Just like that, and just go ahead and run again, and then we will have those values displayed, and we can adjust that here ourselves. So we can actually say, for instance, maybe it doesn't contain, or it's equal to, or it starts with, it's greater than, less than, however you please. But that then really opens up the functionality of the advanced search as well as the power of this application. Okay, so within the advanced search, we have a load of settings here. And really, one of my favorite ones is straight away here, use enter to submit. So that when you press your enter key, it will search for you. So with that enabled straight away, we submit the form and it will search. Now we can select here our advanced fields, which are the same as those defined here within the search criteria, and we can add more in here. For instance, we can add the quantity if we wanted to, the unit price, the total price, and of course move them around within the form as we see fit. And just like that, we've made a little adjustment there to our search application. We've removed one field and added a new one. So there we have now the quantity, which is by default greater than, less than, or equal. And of course, just like the others, we can choose all or a specific comparison that we want to apply. So back in the form here, you can set those fields as required, change the position, add a message in there. And of course, we have the save search functionality, which then allows us to set that and use rules again. And we can assign rules in here, my rule. And here I will add a label, say user login. And then here the variable name would maybe be the user login. And I could run that then. Of course, I need to add that. Run that then, and of course those would then be applied here to my search filter, so that when I save my search, it is then stored for me. And of course I can access this here in the public or vice versa. Okay, so we have here also many events that we can use within the search application on script init, on save, and with that opens up more functionalities. We can change the layout of that as well as much more. Now, before we come more into the advanced search, let's have a quick look at the dynamic search, because this is very similar to the advanced search, but with the dynamic search, again, we can submit the form on enter, and then we can choose the fields that we want to have available for it. So right now there are no fields available, and that is why within our form here we also have no dynamic search available. So now if I come here, I can then choose here the continent country, for instance, save that, run the application again, and now I will have the dynamic search button available, and I can add then the specific fields that I then want to maybe search from. Okay, I can apply that, and then just like that we have our search working beautifully. And it's all just with a simple click. Now we have then also the quick search, and that then allows us to modify the quick search functionality. Again, we can adjust the fields for which we want it to be able to search. So I can change here that it wants to search all fields right now, or only my select fields. So if I say only select fields, then it will only search maybe the continent, or as well as maybe the country fields, or neither. And of course, that choice is all yours. You just need to define that, add those in here, click that save button, and make those difficult choices. Now at the bottom here, you also have then the search criteria for the quick search. So again, we can adjust that. So maybe it contains, different, greater than, less than, depending on maybe the field definitions that you have for searching within. Okay, so the quick search, dynamic search, advanced search, they are all there and available for you. And just as the other modules, you are again able here to modify the fields separately. So you can change the lookup if you wanted to. You can change the data type of the field within the search. So maybe you want to have the country only as a drop-down list, maybe the client also and the continent, or maybe you would like to have here the quantity as an integer. And of course with that we can use a slider, and then we can have here a slider displayed, which would then change the values depending on the slider that we have here. So if I come advanced search, and then we have here the slider, and with that we have then a quantity that we can apply in here. So greater than, less than, or equal, all depending on the values that we have there. Now we have here the increment, so we may want to adjust this from 1 to 10, as well as the width of the slider that we can adjust, and the size. Now you also have then the on change submit, so if I then adjust that field, it will then submit the form and basically perform the search for us. Okay, so with that, we can then make quick adjustments here to our fields and of course have that adjusted within our application. So here, for instance, I'll say increment by 5, for instance. We also have then the width defined here. We may want to increase that because we are going to make an important change here in a moment. So right now I will go ahead and save that. And here for the country, here this I will change to a select field, and here we can maybe change that to a lookup method, which is then manual, and then we can add then in here our labels for our country. So Asia, for instance. And of course, if we have variables here, then maybe we would, that is how we would then want to have those defined as numbers, integers, sorry. And with that, then we can then have a select drop down menu for the select country just by simply applying that. So I will clear that and set that back to text again. And of course, with that, maybe we would want to change that to a text autocomplete instead, because we could even have that autocomplete our data. And then here we can provide the search lookup. We can create the select. So we have then here no country table, but we have here our clients, for instance, or our comparison table, which is the table we are using right now. And in here we have the country, and then there we can choose the country as the option. Choose that and choose our connection, and if I go ahead and run that now, that will then list all of the countries that are available within our list here. So I can come then here to the continent field, which is where we have that applied, and if I type here Asia we can see that already that it's performing a search for us, and we can then just select that and perform our search. So just like that, we can make some very important quick adjustments to how the search functions. Okay, so once that has been all applied, let me come back here to the settings, and here within the settings we can make some other adjustments to our search. So we have here first of all the enter to submit, initial status of the tree view. We may want to have that collapsed or expanded. We can make those adjustments there. And then if I come here to the settings also, we also have the option here. And then once we are done with our settings here within the advanced search, we can come back here to our grid module. And if I come here to the search module, I can make some important adjustments here. So for instance, we can change the filter module from grid to summary, chart, PDF if we wanted to where the search is then applied. I can also use iframes if I wanted to. So here I'll say search modal yes if I wanted to, and I can open then a search modal window. So if I go ahead and run that now, for instance, I can then come here and click search, and it opens up then in a modal window, which may be, more suitable for certain situations or just the layout of your application. Okay, so once we are back here within our application modules and checking out the search, we can apply here a width on here. So I'm going to set that to 100 and set it to %. And I'm going to change the initial module here to search. And by doing so, it will open up here the use iframe option. And I can say yes. And that will then display the search with the grid all in one application. So just like that, we then have the search displayed within the grid application at the same time. And of course, we can make all the adjustments we need to the header, for instance. So here I can display the grid header if I wanted to. And if I run that, you'll see then now that the header of the grid would be displayed if we have that. So if I come here to layout, header and footer, we have here the grid header, and then here for the advanced search, header and footer. Let's make sure they are enabled. They are enabled. Okay, so they are then also here displayed, and of course we can adjust that as we want to here. So if I remove here the header from our advanced search, that will be gone from there. And then here the header, remove it from there. And from grid modules, of course, I'm using here, well, I'm hiding here the grid header already, so I could leave it there already, but just for the sake of it, I will remove it as well and then run the application. So now we have no header in here at all, and maybe you'd want one just for the search, maybe you have a menu or however you have that. Now the toolbar here can also be adjusted, of course, very quickly and easily here within the toolbar options within the advanced search. Here we can then adjust those so maybe they're aligned the same as the other icons or the other buttons that we have within our application, and the same here with our other toolbar icons. Now, a very important thing to note here with our search is that we have a lot of functionality here over the fields, because say for instance we have some extra fields here, say select fields. Let us then add here the order date, for instance, and that is an interesting one. So I'll add that up there, save that there, and then if I come here to the order date, we have a lot of functionality here for a date field. So first of all, we have all of the default values here where we can configure the regional settings, how that date is displayed, whether it's just the date and month or just the year or however you please. We have the option of displaying or not displaying the format, as well as having a calendar available for you to click on and make your selection, which is nice. And of course with that we can add even additional months so that we have a larger calendar available. Now if I scroll down here, we have also here our normal conditions, and on normals, I can change that to maybe specials, and then I can apply special search conditions to here the order date. For instance, I may want to just search for the current year to date, the current year, last year, next year. I will enable all of these, and of course I can add a whole new date range if I want to. Now we have then also other values here for week, month, day, some extras there, as well as then sorting options that we can choose from. And just by then setting that to specials and having those values then displayed, we can then also choose here maybe a default value. So if I go to maybe last year and then run that application again, we can see then here we have our search, which is then actually automatically applied. Here, so the dates are applied. We just choose then here the date that we want. So today, the last 7 days, or the last month. We can then search and we'll see there'll be nothing, but maybe the last 12 months, and do a new search, and there we go, April 2023, and there we have then a load of data there. And that is then for that specified timeline. And of course that in itself is very powerful. Now if I come back in here again, and if I remove here the specials back to normals and run that again, because just now we did not really get to see here the calendar application, and that is then there available with then the 3 months. Of course we have many other features there available for that, because again, we can have normals and specials here, because that is also an option, and apply, some of these extra features in here if we wanted to, as well as then other options. Now you may want to then add, for instance, a comparison operator to this, because we can add that as well. So with that, then we have our date field there, and of course we have all of those lovely options available to us. Now what we may want to do then is actually change that to date comparison, which is then a nice data type that we have available there, and that will then allow us to change that. And with that, if I go ahead and run that now as it is, we will then have here a compare option. So I can choose then here from the drop down, again, all of those custom values for last year, previous year, and so forth, and place then maybe even a compare to a previous period, and we can search that. Now if I go here, maybe say last year, so the last 12 months compared to previous. Okay, so if I go search now, and if I scroll down here, we then have all of our values here, which is very nice. And of course, if I change then the group by to maybe continent or something, and we have then all our prices here also, and we can then run the compare on that, and then we have our data displayed as we need it. Now it's important to note that we are, of course, checking out here the grid application, right? So if I change that here to the summary, then that will then display us here the percentages beautifully, and of course we will have other ups and downs, especially here with the comparison. When we run that will then display that differently for us, but we will make some other adjustments here first of all. So if I come back here to the grid application, and what I want to do then is actually come up here to the grid modules. Now we have that starting as a search application right now, and really what we want to do is maybe start the summary straight away. So with that, we have added a lot of features into our application here so far. Now, if I come here to the comparison operator now, if I choose last year compared to the preceding year, click search for instance, and then come here to the summary, we will then see the differences. So we have here the variations, and we can see then how much of a difference we have between those periods. Now, if I come here to view a chart of this, then we will have that also displayed beautifully. Now, if I come back here, we have this still organized in a way that it is prepared to continue with the comparison. So if I come here to columns, for instance, and I scroll down, I will then see here the fields that I currently have available. And that is just the same as with all of the other options here, the settings and so forth. They still function just the way they did previously. And when I come here to the summary, we have here various options available that maybe you didn't notice before, because we have here the chart options where we can adjust then the chart settings. And next to that, we have then also settings for this grid or this summary that we are currently viewing. Then we have here the group by, and of course we have our static group by that we have defined, but we also have the dynamic group by. And because we have here the X and Y axis, we can actually apply that here beautifully and dynamically adjust then the data that is then available to us and compared within the same grid application. Now, how powerful is that? Because I think that is pretty darn powerful, isn't it? And of course, it's important to highlight that now I have made some adjustments to this, I could save that view and, keep that for myself for another save. And save that, and then of course I can come back to that whenever I want to. I can apply the semester save that I have there, and of course I can come back and apply any other save that I have applied here. So if I come back here to save, and of course you can scroll down then and apply then maybe another save that we had just applied, and within a few moments you are back to wherever you was previously with your saved data view points that you need to review. And with that, we have checked out a load of business intelligence features available within Scriptcase. And of course, there are a few more that we are going to continue looking at, all within the Grid application. Now, it's important to note, of course, that this is just one application that we are looking at today, and it is jam-packed with business intelligence.